From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. We begin in Peru, where during an address to the nation, President Martin Vizcarra called for a special session of Congress to approve a referendum for political and judicial reform. If it doesn't get the nod, Vizcarra says he's prepared to dissolve Congress.
I want to say to all Peruvians that I am not deaf to your outrage. I have made it my own and I share it. I have taken up the public's calls for reform now, for an end to the sale of rights, to impunity in our legal system and to the sickness in our society. 40 days ago, we submitted to Congress 4 proposals for constitutional reform, with the expectation that we and Congress would work and fight together against this epidemic. However, during this time, Congress has not shared the concerns Peruvians who are outraged. They have rejected the urgency of these changes.
We have more from Jaime Herrera in Lima.
Muchas gracias por el pase en efecto del presidente Martín Vizcarra.
In an address to the nation on Sunday evening, President Martin Vizcarra announced that he has summoned both houses of Congress to a special session on Wednesday, with the aim of legislating constitutional reform against corruption. If they block it into a no-confidence vote, Vizcarra says he will then be empowered by Peru's constitution to dissolve Congress. The president is aiming to push Congress into a corner. On Monday, lawmakers from either side of the aisle will meet with parliamentary spokespersons from various parties for the purpose of organizing the special session. This reform debate is quite a complicated situation for this Andean country and has put the Peruvian president on a coalition course with Congress.
The leader of the Olivier Sinistera Front armed group has been wounded during a military operation in Colombia. According to authorities, Walter Artizala, also known as Waucho, was shot in Tumaco, which is close to the Ecuadorian border. The group is believed to be responsible for the kidnap and murders of 5 Ecuadorian citizens.
We have received information about an operation from our special forces, an operation carried out by the military and police that Guacho was injured. At the moment, the military and police are closing in on an area where he was injured as so to find him.
And the Ecuadorian government has released a statement confirming what the Colombian authorities have said. Ecuador says Waucho was seriously injured. He was shot twice in the back. Yet despite this, he managed to escape. Now over to Havana, where Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel sat down for an exclusive interview with Telesur's President Patricia Viejas. Díaz-Canel laments the numerous challenges facing the island nation, most notably the U.S.-imposed blockade.
A ver, yo creo que el principal obstáculo para el desarrollo del país, la cosa que más golpea la vida cotidiana de los cubanos y cubanas, y también la vida económica y social, es el bloqueo impuesto por los Estados Unidos, que es una práctica brutal. Yo diría que es un hecho de lesa humanidad, atenta contra un pueblo. Es un pueblo condenado a morir de hambre, a morir de...
But despite the obstacles, Díaz-Canel says the Cuban people remain resilient. He also stresses the importance of engaging with the younger generation in revolutionary Cuba.
¿Una preocupación suya comunicarse con los sectores más jóvenes de la sociedad cubana? ¿Siente que de alguna manera
Yo creo que es una necesidad de la revolución. Fidel fue un abanderado de eso. Fidel acudía a las universidades cuando quería discutir algún problema. Son famosos los encuentros en la plaza.
We are going to have the English translation in the next newscast. Other news now. Guatemala's Constitutional Court has ordered that Ivan Velasquez, the head of the International Commission Against Impunity, be allowed to return to the country. The ruling was announced late Sunday evening. The UN-backed anti-corruption body known as CICIG has led a number of high-profile investigations, including one into President Jimmy Morales. Guatemala's head of state has previously announced that he would not renew the commission's mandate for another 2-year term, effectively barring Velasquez from re-entering Guatemala. Trade unions in Costa Rica say they'll continue their open-ended strike against the government's fiscal reform plan. They have rejected the talks proposed by the Catholic Church, and the government says they won't talk until the strike is called off. Monday is the 8th consecutive day of protest action.
An indefinite strike this Monday will be 8th contest date of contest protests. This Sunday, there have been several blockades on roads in the country. This Monday, schools will have little assistance. Up to 80% of teachers plan to participate in the strike. Concentrations of people present in the country's main gas distributors have been maintained. Meanwhile, the talks in the parliament continue between various proposals. Both sides negotiate, but have not yet reached an agreement.
Fernando Francia there in San Jose. Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador is promising to roll out social programs for the elderly and for indigenous peoples. AMLO is also assuring that he has students' best interests at heart. Credit schemes to promote economic development are also high on his priority list. He was speaking at a meeting in Nayarit State during Independence Day celebrations.
There are going to be changes. There will be changes. And look, I will not disappoint you. I will not. And any time there is a difficult situation, I will be present and I will talk to you. I'm sure you will understand me because I will never ever make a decision that negatively affects the people of Mexico. Never ever. I will always act in good faith and with justice. We must all seek the transformation of the country.
We'll take a short break now. More news after this.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identity on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. The Lula Libre Festival, or the Free Lula Festival, took place Sunday in Sao Paulo to condemn the imprisonment of the former president, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva. It's the second edition of the festival, which took place in the heart of the city. Social activists demanded the release of the former president as they warned it put Brazil's democracy at risk. Lula's supporters also claim there is political interference within the judicial system.
Now is the time for Sao Paulo to show art and culture through the politics, to tell the Brazilian society that Lula continues to be our president. He represents the Brazilian government, and all through they removed him from the elections. Haddad is Lula and Lula is Haddad.
This event shows that Lula's freedom is necessary. It's important to return to democracy, which was massacred after the coup against Dilma Rousseff. And she didn't commit a crime. Former President Lula also didn't commit a crime. There is not a proof against him. He's a political prisoner in our country.
His successor and current Workers' Party presidential candidate, Fernando Haddad, has vowed to put an end to the neoliberal policies promoted by the current government. He made the announcement while on the campaign trail. Haddad visited the eastern state of Bahia along with his vice presidential running mate, Manuela de Avila. And now we turn to Ignacio Limas for an update from the campaign trail.
Sao Paulo has taken its turn in hosting the Lula Libre Festival on Paulista Avenue, where thousands gathered and singers and dancers performed. The festival also took place in Rio de Janeiro with the presence of known artists such as Gilberto Gil and Chico Buarque, and also in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Social and political movements set up a stage, including the Brazil Popular Front and the Workers' Party, to demand the freedom of Lula da Silva after being detained for the past 5 months in the federal police headquarters in Curitiba. This festival was held after the attack on the candidate Jair Bolsonaro and several fascist threats against members of left-wing parties, and events were carried out peacefully. The presidential candidate for the Workers' Party, Fernando Haddad, walked from the Art Museum of Sao Paulo through the Paulista Avenue, and he demanded Lula's freedom. This comes at a critical political time in Brazil.
Meanwhile, speaking from his hospital bed, Brazilian presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro warns of possible fraud during the October 7th polls.
The narrative now is that I will lose against anyone in the second round. The big concern isn't really to lose in the vote, it is losing because of fraud. This possibility of fraud in the second round, even in the first, is concrete.
Bolivia has criticized the Secretary General of the Organization of American States for his comments on Venezuela. President Evo Morales says Luis Almagro has, quote, stopped being the OAS Secretary General to become an agent of the U.S. This comes after Almagro suggested military intervention in Venezuela should not be ruled out. And a new group of Venezuelans have returned home as part of the government's return to the homeland plan. They were the latest group to leave Ecuador. More in this report.
After 3 hours of flight from Ecuador, they finally arrived home. They arrived to Venezuela. Each one of them has a story. They are the faces of a supposed humanitarian crisis, an excuse the Organization of American States has used to promote intervention attempts in the country.
Almagro should feel ashamed. A flight with 92 people is returning. He has caused so much harm.
Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, promoted intervention plans from the border with Colombia. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez denounced his statement. The migrants joined her.
Yesterday we saw Almagro talking about Venezuela from Colombia, precisely the country with more migration, more inequality, deaths, and the highest drug production. He talked about Venezuela instead of commenting about Colombia's internal issues. There are political interests promoted by the U.S. Almagro has become a tool for them.
They are not refugees, they are economic migrants. The young people who have returned have another vision. They came back to start all over again.
I realized that I have more opportunities here.
Minimum wages are the same as in Venezuela. It's not worth it. It's surviving.
A team from the Foreign Ministry and other authorities have explained how they can be included in social programs.
We know the hard circumstances that you had to face. The government will guide you and help you benefit from the Return to Your Homeland program.
They are not migrants anymore. A new chapter in Venezuela awaits for them.
Venezuela has signed 28 cooperation agreements with China. President Nicolas Maduro says he is satisfied with the outcome of his visits.
This visit has boosted the relations between China and Venezuela in a key moment for the implementation of our program for the economic recovery. It strengthens our strategy and it gives us stability.
The Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his Chinese counterpart celebrated their bilateral relations after their meeting. They vowed to strengthen the ties between both nations.
We are signing 28 agreements to strengthen our share of development, billions of dollars on investment to develop our companies in the oil field.
Maduro and the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also closed the 16th meeting between both commissions. They also witnessed the signing of these agreements that focus on energy, communications, aerospace cooperation, human resources, mining, and financing.
China and Venezuela are good partners and together have overcome all difficulties. In 2014, President Xi Jinping made an important visit to Venezuela. There it was decided both nations will cooperate on agreements to improve our societies. We are willing to work with the Venezuelan people to strengthen the exchanges, especially on the Road and Belt Initiative.
Both countries agreed on cooperating on economic and human resources training as well. $5 billion will be destined to the mixed company Petrosumano and the production of gold and iron.
Venezuela's future and development is part of a great power formed by Latin America and the Caribbean. These agreements are perfectly aligned with the recovery and growth economic plan.
Maduro also paid tribute to the heroes of China in the monument of Tiananmen Square. He then held meetings with Prime Minister Li Keqiang. Maduro confirmed his will of strengthening the bond between Beijing and Caracas.
In Haiti, the announcement of a new cabinet has fueled riots in the capital. Fiery demonstrations erupted in Port-au-Prince on Sunday following the ratification of Jean-Henri Séan as Prime Minister. Protesters burned tires, blocked major streets, and vandalized properties. Special forces had to be called out to quell escalating tensions. Earlier, the Jean-Henri Séan government won 84 votes in favor, 5 against, and 4 abstentions. On Twitter, he asked Haitians to join forces for the happiness of the country. We'll take another short break now. More news after this.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur. With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. At least 18 people have died after Florence battered North Carolina in the United States. The storm has now been downgraded to a tropical depression, but more flooding is expected. Florence is producing heavy rains, flash flooding, and major river flooding in the Carolinas. More than 900 people have been rescued from rising floodwaters.
Floodwaters are still raging across parts of our state, and the risk to life is rising with the angry waters. We have about 15,000 people or more, that number's fluid, remaining in about 150 shelters across the state. Mass shelters are open in Winston-Salem and Chapel Hill, and additional shelters will be open if necessary. Across the state, around 700,000 people right now are without power.
In the northern German port of Amsterdam, preparations are underway for an upcoming NATO exercise. Special military vehicles are being loaded onto ferries, including armored fighting vehicles. More than 40,000 troops and equipment from more than 30 NATO countries and their partners will be heading to Norway for the Trident Juncture exercise. It is expected to take place sometime between October and November. And in Cologne, thousands of demonstrators marched in solidarity with refugees. Protesters call on the government to stop deportations to countries such as Iraq and Afghanistan. They say immigrants should be able to stay in Germany. They also took a stand against racism and xenophobia as right-wing violence sparked in Chemnitz. The Palestinian activist Ahed Tamimi attended the annual Festival of Humanity in Paris on Sunday. The teen who became the face of the Palestinian resistance after she spent 8 months in prison was warmly received. She said she was proud of what had been accomplished, that the truth had been spread about Palestine. Tamimi also repeated the call to boycott Israel.
The message that I would like to share with the world is that we need to look at the truth in its face. Palestinians always suffer as a result of Israeli occupation. My people require support. There must be solidarity with Palestine. We need to boycott Israel, spread the truth, explain to students the reality of Palestine by organizing meetings and conferences. We are gathered here today, first of all, to thank the French people for their support.
Thousands have marched in Madrid against bullfighting. They want lawmakers to push for animal protection laws. Demonstrators called by Spain's animal rights party, PACMA, want bullfighting to be banned. They say it is a cruel tradition.
What makes a country noble is not blindly keeping its traditions. What ennobles a country is its capacity to get rid of cruelty and walk to an ideal of justice, which is not bathed in blood.
And Kenya's Olympic marathon champion, Eliud Kipchoge, has shattered the marathon world record in Berlin. The super athlete crossed the finish line in 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds. Kipchoge took nearly 1 minute and 20 seconds off the previous best set by his compatriot, Dennis Kimetto. Last year, he missed out on becoming the first athlete to run the marathon in under 2 hours by a mere 26 seconds.
It was really, in sport they say, train well and show yourself approved in a race. So it shows that I trained for the last 4 months in a positive and in a good way. That's why I was really having a full faith in my Philip. I want to say actually thank you to all the spectators from the first kilometer to the last kilometer. They really pushed me. It was like having music in my ears.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. At Tell Us Your English, I'm Suni Gray. Thank you so much for watching.